Hey, I am so glad you're here. We're going to go back to Beatlemania, Pop Top Cans, and I Have a Dream. Hi there, my name is Linda. In this episode, we're going to go back to 1963. Some of you remember this year well, and some of you may be curious in what was America doing 58 years ago. I was in second grade in 1963 and remember some things like the assassination of John F. Kennedy, but only because I watched my mom crying while she was watching the funeral on TV, and that stuck in my head. So, before we get started, let's test your skills on the 1960s.
Okay, you ready to rock and roll? Number 1. What sitcom series followed the adventures of 7 castaways as they attempted to survive after being shipwrecked on an island? Was it A, Green Acres, B, Days of Our Lives, C, The Avengers, or D, Gilligan's Island? If you picked D, Gilligan's Island, you are right. Gilligan's Island aired for 3 seasons on CBS from September 64 to April 67. The only cast member alive today is Tina Louise, who played Ginger, the movie star. She is 86. It was filmed in Oahu's Kaneohe Bay, which is the home of the Institute of Marine Biology. Number 2. On the TV sitcom Beverly Hillbillies, what was Jed Clampett's daughter's name? Was it A, Pearlie Jane, B, Ellie Mae, C, Betty Jane, or D, Hattie Lou? If you picked Ellie Mae, you are absolutely correct. The Beverly Hillbillies aired for 9 seasons from 62 to 71 on CBS. A poor backwoods family hits oil and becomes over-the-top wealthy, so they move to Beverly Hills. As of today, the only member of the family alive is Max Baer, who played Jethro Bodine, son of Jed's cousin, and he is 83. Okay, here we go. Number 3. Who played Gomez Addams on the TV show The Addams Family? Was it A, Jackie Coogan, B, Ted Cassidy, C, John Astin, D, Bob Denver? Did you pick John Astin? Correctamundo. The Addams Family was shot in black and white. They aired for 2 seasons on ABC from 64 to 66 for a total of 64 episodes. John Astin, 91, who played Gomez Addams, and Lisa Loring, 63, who played Wednesday Addams, are still alive from the main cast members. Okay, number 4. On the TV series Hogan's Heroes, Schultz carried what rank? Was it A, Private, B, Sergeant, C, Colonel, or D, Major? Did you pick Sergeant? You are absolutely correct. Hogan's Heroes aired from September 65 to April 1971, 6 seasons on CBS. It was a sitcom set in Nazi Germany prisoner of war camp during World War II. The only actor still alive, Robert Clary, who played Corporal Louis LeBeau, who is now 95 years old. Okay, here we go. Number 5. What series does Miss Kitty own a saloon called the Long Branch? Is it A, Gunsmoke, B, Bonanza, C, Tombstone, or D, Westworld? If you guessed Gunsmoke, you are absolutely correct. Gunsmoke actually started on the radio and it ran from 1952 to 61. On television, It ran for 20 seasons, from 55 to 75, 635 episodes. It was a drama series. The stories took place in or around Dodge City, Kansas. The only actors that are still alive is 79-year-old Roger Ewing, who played Thad Greenwood, and 83-year-old Buck Taylor, who played Newly O'Brien. Number 6, who starred in the comedy show My Mother the Car? Was it A, Dick Van Dyke, B, Jerry Van Dyke, C, Bill Bixby, or D, William Daniels? If you picked Jerry Van Dyke, you are absolutely right. My Mother the Car was a sitcom where a man, who is Jerry Van Dyke's deceased mother, is reincarnated as an antique car. It only lasted one season, from 65 to 66 on NBC. Critics and adult viewers disliked the show. In fact, in 2002, TV Guide proclaimed that it was the second worst show behind Jerry Springer. Number 7, what year did the Andy Griffith Show first air on TV? Was it A, 1965, B, 1967, C, 1969, or D, 1960? If you picked 1960, you are absolutely correct. Andy Griffith Show is a situation comedy that aired on CBS from October 1960 to April 1968, with a total of 249 episodes. 159 of those episodes were in black and white. Andy Griffith plays Andy Taylor, a widowed sheriff of Mayberry, North Carolina, which was a fictional community of about 3,000 people. The series never was lower than 7th in the Nielsen ratings, ending its final season as number 1. The only other shows that ended up at the top of the ratings were I Love Lucy and Seinfeld. Number 8, what was the name of the hired hand on Green Acres? Was it A, Sam, B, Hank, C, Eb, or D, Tom? If you picked Eb, you are absolutely correct. Green Acres was about a couple who move out of New York City to a country farm. It was broadcasted by CBS for 6 years, from September 1965 to April 1971. It also received solid ratings. The 2-part episode, A Star Named Arnold is Born, was ranked 59th on the TV Guide's 100th greatest episodes of all time. Tom Lester played Eb Dobson, who was the last of the cast to pass away. He died in April 2020 of Parkinson's disease.
How'd you do? Did you do okay? Well, now that you have done well, you can play trivia and just rock. So let's get started on our trip through 1963. I'm going to start with the economy. So let's take a quick look at the cost of living in 1963. I like to start with this because I believe by setting the economic stage, you can understand the people of the time a little bit more. So, average income was $12,650, and if you add inflation, that would be $51,808. In 2021, our average income is about $80,000. Yearly inflation rate in 1963 was 1.24%. Today, in 2021, it's about 5%, so inflation was a lot lower. Interest rates in 1963 were 5.9%, not real high, but not as low as our 2021 average rate is about 3%. And of course, you know, it fluctuates daily. National average of gas per gallon in 63 was 22 cents. But if you add inflation, that would be $2.59. In 2021, the national average of gas per gallon is $2.38. And of course, some states are lower, some are much higher, like California, for instance. It's over $4, and that's the average cost. So, average cost of a house in 1963 was $12,650. With the inflation added in, that would be $51,808. In 2021, the average home is $340,000. Again, that changes greatly depending on what part of the country you are looking for a home. And as you know, it's location, location, location. Average cost of a new car in 1963 was $3,233. And add inflation, that's $28,846. In 2021, the national average for a new light car is about $40,000. If you were born in 1946, the beginning of the baby boom, you are 17 years old in 1963. So you're a teenager and you're ready for rock and roll. On August 28, 1963, was the March on Washington. The march was to consist of a mile-long march from the Washington Monument to the Lincoln Memorial, and that was in honor of the president who signed the Emancipation Proclamation, Abraham Lincoln, a century earlier. The series of prominent speakers included A. Philip Randolph, who was the march director, John Lewis of SNCC, which is Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, and Floyd McKissick from CORE, which is the Congress of Racial Equality. Roy Wilkins from NAACP, which is the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, and many more. The final speaker is going to be Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So Dr. King has spoken before the march using the phrase, "I have a dream," at least 9 times. For the march, he had drafted a version of the speech that didn't include it. And as he spoke that day, a gospel singer called Malia Jackson kept prompting him, "Tell them about the dream, Martin." So he did abandon the prepared speech and then began to improvise the rest of the speech with electrifying results. And you can see where he does it. Watch closely.
Let us not wallow in the valley of despair. I say to you today, my friend, so even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
His speech alludes to the Gettysburg Address, the Emancipation Proclamation, the Declaration of Independence, the U.S. Constitution, Shakespeare, and the Bible. The speech was being televised on 3 major networks at the time, ABC, CBS, and NBC. Even though King was a national figure at the time, it was the first time many Americans had heard him deliver an entire speech. 2 Americans that were watching were President Kennedy and his brother, U.S. Attorney General Robert Kennedy. Kennedy was so impressed, and not only did he recognize where Dr. King went off script, but that he spoke from the heart. And he also listened to his words, because after that, President Kennedy began putting together the Civil Rights Act. Unfortunately, President Kennedy was assassinated less than 3 months later. But his successor, Lyndon Johnson, would sign the Civil Rights Act of 1964 in his memory. On November 22, 1963, in Dealey Plaza, Dallas, Texas, President John Fitzgerald Kennedy was shot and killed by Lee Harvey Oswald.
President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, some 38 minutes ago.
He was only 46 years old. Oswald goes on to kill a police officer, J.D. Tippit, before he was apprehended. On November 24th, live on television, Jack Ruby steps forward from the crowd, shoots and kills Lee Harvey Oswald.
There is Lee Oswald. He's been shot. He's been shot. Lee Oswald has been shot. There's the man with a gun. It's absolute panic here in the basement of Dallas Police Headquarters. Detectives have their guns drawn. Oswald has been shot.
The Warren Commission in 1964 concluded that the president was assassinated by Lee Harvey Oswald acting alone, and that Jack Ruby acted alone when he killed Oswald. Conspiracy theories are still expounded and discussed in books and the media nearly over 50 years later. Some blame the Soviet KGB, the US CIA, the Mafia, and on and on. Finally, in the case Engel versus Vitale, the Supreme Court ruled that laws requiring reciting the Lord's Prayer or Bible verses in public schools were unconstitutional. Okay, let's start with technology first. So some of the 1963 technology includes AT&T introduces the touch tone phone. You don't have to dial a number, you just push a button. Kodak introduces the Instamatic camera. Lava lamps come out in 1963. They were launched by Edward Craven Walker. And you're going to love this one. Zip codes. Yep. Zip codes. They are introduced by the U.S. Postal Service in 1963. The name ZIP stood for Zoning Improvement Plan. Of course, the government has to have an acronym. I mean, does that surprise you? Prior to the rollout of zip codes to the country, the U.S. Postal Service expanded distribution centers and began assigning a 5-digit code for every address in the United States. Each digit in a zip code represents different geographical markers, with the first digit representing a general region in the United States, the second and third for a sectional center, and then the last 2 digits for a local post office or postal zone. Cool, huh? I must start this segment with this. In 1963, the smiley face was born. Yep, it was an insurance firm, State Mutual Life, that came up with it. You can find it on everything around the world.
Nobody likes that color anyway.
Have a nice day. Well, some years later, I found out that man did come up with an idea for a t-shirt.
The Beatles released their first album, Please Please Me, with songs like I Want to Hold Your Hand, I Saw Her Standing There, and She Loves You. And this will begin what they call Beatlemania.
How long do you think Beatlemania will last?
As long as you all keep coming.
The Beatles are great, Harvey Henry says so. Hey, the Beatles. I love them. I don't care what anybody thinks. I love the Beatles for them, and I'll always love them. Even when I'm 105 and an old grandmother, I'll love them.
Popular films. Cleopatra, starring Elizabeth Taylor, who was the first actress to earn $1 million for a single film.
You should attack my guards more often. Battle seems to become you.
Lawrence of Arabia, starring Peter O'Toole, Mutiny on the Bounty, starring Marlon Brando, and To Kill a Mockingbird, starring Gregory Peck. Popular TV programs. The Andy Griffith Show, starring Andy Griffith. It ran 8 seasons, 249 episodes. Between 1960 and 1968, Ron Howard, or Opie Taylor, he started the series when he was 6 years old, and when it ended, he was 14. The Flintstones. The Flintstones had 6 seasons. Did you know that Fred and Wilma were one of the first television couples to sleep in the same bed? It seems really strange today, but couples weren't allowed to share a bed on American television. Mr. Ed, starring Alan Young, 6 seasons of a talking horse, of course. The Avengers, starring Patrick Magee and Diana Rigg. It ran 6 seasons between 61 and 68. Here are some celebrities born in 1963. Michael Jordan, Johnny Depp, Mike Myers, Brad Pitt, Conan O'Brien, John Stamos, Whitney Houston, and Julian Lennon, son of John Lennon. That's interesting, because if Julian was born in the year the Beatles released their first album, I imagine, sorry, play on words there, John wasn't around much during that time. Well, thank you so much for watching. You are all so wonderful. I appreciate every single one of you. I wouldn't have had so much fun if it weren't for you. And when you subscribe to this channel, it helps me to put on more shows and to get better. It takes about 1,000 subscribers for me to get monetized, and if you would subscribe, I promise you it will be worth your while. And my first 42 subscribers, you guys are so awesome. Thank you so much. I do want every one of you to take care of yourselves and learn something every day. And peace out. Subscribe. I love you all. Thank you so much.
Down, Gracie, down.